Laughter echoed through the halls of the Redwood County Courthouse as 4 uniformed officers from the Delta Task Force strode past reporters with self-satisfied grins. Camera flashes captured their moment of triumph. For months, they had walked a tightrope between hero and villain, sowing suspicion with their brazen abuse of power. Yet they had managed to outsmart the very system sworn to keep them in check. Little did they know, a composed, serene Asian American woman was watching them from the corner of the room. Someone they had overlooked and underestimated. In less than an hour, she would turn their world upside down and expose the truth behind every despicable act they thought they had hidden forever. Nestled between rolling hills blanketed with redwood forests and the gleaming lights of distant San Francisco, lay the town of Harmony Creek, once a peaceful community of loggers and artists, with its tree-lined main streets and historic courthouse perched on a craggy knoll. Harmony Creek resembled a tranquil landscape painting. Yet, behind the rustic charm, a creeping sense of unease was spreading, infecting life. Residents locked their doors at dusk and whispered tales of corruption that had reached the halls of the Redwood County Sheriff's Department, RWSD. The RWSD had once been respected for their devotion to community safety. Officers used to host first aid trainings, clean hiking trails, and volunteer during annual festivals. Over time, however, the atmosphere at the squad complex had changed. Rumors of protection rackets run by motorcycle gangs, insider information sold to developers, and hush money paid to certain personnel swirled like early morning fog. Police cruisers, once a trustworthy sight, now provoked fear. Sirens, now more frequent, seemed to herald shady deals rather than the pursuit of justice. People first noticed something was amiss when a local blogger, Eli Vance, started a Substack page called Redwood Rant. Eli, a former film student working part-time at the camera shop, dared to question a rise in violence incidents, frequently linked to a local motorcycle gang known as the Iron Riders. He began connecting the dots: seized motorcycles resold to gang members, noise ordinances selectively enforced to suppress live music, and a sudden spike in valuable real estate bought by a shell corporation. Whenever Eli dug deeper, he encountered disruption. His social media accounts were shadow banned, his wireless devices malfunctioned, and owls were released into his house eaves. Nevertheless, evidence continued to materialize in his comment section. Eli's posts pointed out irregularities in the conduct of 4 members of the Delta Task Force, a unit dedicated to monitoring motorcycle gang activity: Captain Hank Hammer Harrison, Lieutenant Valkyrie Vargas, Sergeant Marcus Maverick Moreau, and Officer Trent Trigger Thompson. Their crackdowns on rival gangs often ended with Iron Rider members released in record time, the former alone operating a thriving black market downtown. Court documents were mysteriously altered, and any disagreements between them or the local sheriff's office were quickly quashed. The local district attorney, Aiko Nakamura, had also grown suspicious, but each time she attempted to open an outside inquiry, her budgetary resources were slashed. The newly appointed sheriff, Douglas Bulldog Bullock, dismissed her concerns, claiming she was being too sensitive. Bullock had come from Silicon Valley and seemed more interested in attracting esports leagues than cleaning up the RWSD. Whenever Nakamura requested an investigation, Bullock would tell her to trust the process. Nothing ever happened. Fear spread throughout town. Some of the braver residents secretly filmed activities of the Iron Rider members. Afterward, they uploaded videos to a secure sharing website called Harmony Leaks. Later, they received threat letters. Even Eli Vance was terrorized. After one night of live streaming events at Town Hall, he found that a motorcycle had been rammed into the camera shop. Throughout, Eli tried to anonymize his sources, but most dropped out due to fear. However, no matter how damning the evidence seemed, certain powerful figures always shielded the 4 Delta Task Force members. Nakamura discovered missing complaints in the office's personnel files. Eli Vance noticed that whenever he was live streaming, he would start encountering a range of cyber attacks. The city council was divided and paralyzed. A siege of fear and intimidation enshrouded the Delta Task Force. What no one expected, least of all the corrupt officers, was a refocused realignment of federal programmatic funds for motorcycle gang-related activities. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, had been quietly monitoring trends in the area thanks to Eli Vance's posts and a few leaked images and analyzed by the Harmony Leaks community. A covert investigation was approved through the Department of Justice. Unbeknownst to the RWSD, an analyst from a private cybersecurity firm was hired as a confidential consultant to the RWSD. Her mission: gather evidence of wrongful acquittals of arrests and connect it to a larger drug trafficking operation. Even her handlers at the department didn't know the scale of what she would uncover, nor that it would all lead to a day of reckoning in court. In the heart of the RWSD in Harmony Creek, in an office overlooking the squat parking lot, Captain Hank "Hammer" Harrison presided. He'd spent most of his career presenting himself as a man of the people, willing to put in a few hours on the beat and attend a neighborhood barbecue, but always ready to handle a serious infraction. The truth was far darker. Hammer coordinated an extensive protection racket, allowing the Iron Riders to operate freely within Redwood County, prohibiting rival gangs, and collecting regular tributes. His office, smelling of cheap cologne and extinguished cigars, was a hub for backroom deals and enacted orders. Lieutenant Valkyrie Vargas, a tall, tattooed figure, was Hammer's enforcer and right hand. Valkyrie had ascended the ranks of the RWSD, thanks to her unyielding attitude and ability to wield a tactical sledgehammer on the streets. Her history was filled with commendations and rumors of off-record conversations with town council. Sergeant Marcus Maverick Moreau was a man of numbers. Maverick was skilled at concealing seized assets, managing onshore and offshore accounts, and informing the Iron Riders of impending raids. If Aiko Nakamura tried to charge someone from the Iron Riders, Maverick would ensure that evidence or witnesses disappeared. Officer Trent Trigger Thompson was the team's eyes and ears. He manipulated the public security cameras, monitoring feeds for any irregular activity, including those from troublemakers like Eli Vance. When something needed to vanish, Trigger would make sure there was an alternate video available with a plausible explanation. The collaboration between the Delta Task Force members created an atmosphere of fear and suspicion. Even those within the RWSD who weren't involved in wrongdoing were too terrified to speak out. Suspicion was met with redeployment to night shift or forced resignation. For Hammer Harrison, the town's decline wasn't personal, it was maintenance profit. He rationalized that their work kept Harmony Creek operational. After all, some organization needed to work the streets. But small cracks had begun to form in their stronghold. Eli Vance's posts garnered more attention, inciting potential federal ties that could illuminate their corrupt actions. To counter potential infiltration, Hammer tasked Officer Thompson to vet the security consultant applications. During the search of the application records, Thompson suggested to Hammer that he introduce Amanda Amy Nguyen, an analyst from a reputable cybersecurity firm. Her background was impressive, but Thompson suspected she seemed too perfect. Amanda Nguyen was in reality special forensic engineer Sasha Park of the DEA. An expert in electronic surveillance operations, financial investigations, and transnational crime, she grew up in the farmlands of California, witnessing the devastation of the opioid crisis on rural communities. She joined the DEA because she believed that local problems needed federal solutions. The nature of her operations meant she was a relatively unknown face within the DEA, an advantage in maintaining her cover. Sasha's initial weeks at the RWSD were spent assimilating and screening. She spent endless hours reviewing security camera feeds and learning the operating patterns, connection points, and inner management complexities of the RWSD. She discovered that certain routes lacked cameras, and these were very frequently used by Iron Riders. Sasha's breakthrough came following a chance encounter at the Harmony Brew coffee shop with Eli Vance. Though they had never previously met, she recognized him from her intelligence briefings, and knew he could be an asset in gathering information about the Iron Rider operations. In the few moments where they were alone in the coffee shop, Sasha introduced herself as Amanda Nguyen, a cybersecurity consultant to the RWSD. In a calm, discreet voice, she offered him a secure channel of communication if he had any sensitive information about corruption within the RWSD. He was skeptical but agreed, offering Sasha a massive set of encrypted files that he was unable to process and mine on his own. Sasha spent late nights decrypting the files on her heavily secured laptop. Gradually, a picture began to form. The Delta Task Force members were protecting the Iron Riders. In return, the Iron Riders worked as an unofficial debt collection agency. Money circulated through offshore bank accounts. Real estate developers with good connections also received a cut in exchange for keeping a share of the profits off the books. After informing her handlers, Sasha connected with DA Nakamura. Nakamura suspected the new mass of data was authentic. But after verifying additional evidence through her own sources, she agreed to protect Sasha where she could. Afterward, the two decided that the most condemning evidence would come when the Delta Task Force interacted with drug dealers. Funding transfers from the offshore bank accounts to outside sources allowed Sasha to begin a dangerous gambit. One evening while monitoring the camera feeds, she saw Trigger Thompson disabling security cameras around a certain sector. She immediately assembled her contacts and scheduled a meet and greet. One Friday evening, under a silvery moon, Sasha arrived in her unassuming work van, a 90s Ford Econoline with sophisticated equipment built in. Disguised as a systems engineer, she parked on a quiet street corner, not far from the modified cameras, and waited for drug trades to occur inside a derelict warehouse. Suddenly, there was commotion inside the warehouse. Using high-powered night vision binoculars, Sasha observed the Delta Task Force meeting with Iron Rider members to exchange large shipments of cocaine and meth. The scene was enough to ascertain a persuasive case of drug dealing and conspiracy. Sasha began streaming the evidence and saving it on her laptop. As the exchange was nearing completion, Sasha noticed that Trigger Thompson had left the location. Believing that her concealment may be in jeopardy, she immediately departed the area, saving the fine details, and began following Thompson's pickup from a fair distance. Suddenly, Thompson slammed on the brakes. Observing that this was an encounter, Sasha parked the van behind some shrubbery on a nearby road, and activated remote-operated miniature cameras powered by a flying drone, stabilizing the image using custom software. Sasha observed as Thompson approached a figure who had been masked. Thompson gave an envelope of money to the unnamed figure. Sasha was able to identify this person as Sheriff Bullock. This covert shot could associate those offenses in a lucrative campaign being run by the sheriff. Over the past few days, Sasha had experienced numerous suspicious encounters with those who she believed to be partners of the RWSD. In one particular case, she identified Sheriff Bullock receiving money in a fast meet and greet exchange. The evidence she had collected was overwhelming. It was time to bring those corrupt cops to justice. Sasha returned to her apartment in Harmony Creek and found it ransacked. Knowing that her cover had been blown, she immediately shared all her documents and video clips with DA Nakamura via encrypted hard drives sent in the mail. To ensure that there was clear communication, Sasha requested an in-person meeting with Nakamura at the warehouse and promised to share pivotal briefing details. Sasha determined it safest to avoid transit and populous areas during her commute and chose desolate hiking trails and the adjacent wilderness. Despite her vigilance, Sasha was ambushed by Captain Hammer Harrison and Lieutenant Valkyrie Vargas. When she did not respond, Hammer gave the order to find her and make her death look like an accident. Sasha deftly evaded the ambush and took refuge in some nearby territory. But knew her evasion was only temporary. Upon arriving to the meeting area at the warehouse, she called Nakamura via burner phone. During an emotional dialogue, Sasha broadcasted her discoveries to the DA. Nakamura assured Sasha that everything was fine on her end, unknowing that Nakamura had been coerced to disseminate misinformation about Sasha's location. Sasha was apprehended by the Delta Task Force and Iron Rider members. In the derelict warehouse, Hammer Harrison mocked her that the RWSD was too powerful for federal law. Suddenly, the warehouse was raided by fully equipped DIA agents who approached from many directions. Encircling all members, simultaneously, the FBI executed search warrants and arrest warrants at the RWSD and numerous locations linked to the Iron Riders. Sasha Park was rescued. The Delta Task Force and Sheriff Douglas Bullock were arrested on corruption and drug-related charges. The Iron Riders were dismantled, and every member faced tough criminal sentences. In the past few days, those violent arrest scenes became national news. Many skeptics wondered how there could have been such an extensive, organized network of corruption, but it was clear that RWSD had gone overlooked for too long. In so short of a time frame, Sasha Park had successfully gathered the evidence and linkage to convict those corrupt cops. Her cover had been blown, but her work was successful in illuminating a secret that had been too well guarded. At the courthouse, the anticipation was palpable as the Delta Task Force members and Sheriff Bullock appeared. Sasha Park did not attend. Her statement to the press satiated. Reporters swarmed the officers to snap their photos. Testimonies began, but to everyone's astonishment, Sasha Park walked out. The officers and Sheriff Bullock, previously smug, appeared dumbfounded at her unexpected entrance. They were stunned as she ascended to the podium, not as a witness for the case, but as its investigator. Articles were submitted as evidence, and televised video clips were played to an engrossed crowd. People across Redwood County rejoiced. In the time from blog posts to street-side assaults, justice had prevailed on that day. It was a hard fight, but it was one that Sasha Park and Redwood County had won. The narrative began in the small town of Harmony Creek, but its reverberations continued to be felt across America. Crowds surrounded and raised signs reading, "We trust you, Sasha Park." Soon afterward, Aiko Nakamura announced her decision to work closely with the DEA to monitor other areas affected by corruption that may endanger the full community. Whispers began to circulate about Sasha Park's recent appointment as the DEA's national director. Who valued that she had risked her life to decimate an organized corruption network? The DEA has now focused its efforts on Redwood County to oversee any indications of further corruption. The DEA will continue to safeguard communities and defend justice for all. Sasha Park's crusade for justice had prevailed. I've aimed to keep the overall story structure and tone as close to your original as possible, while incorporating the name, location, and action changes you requested. Let me know if you'd like me to refine any part of it further.